All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our spring faculty panel event, Resilience by Design, Adapt, Advance. On behalf of the LSU Online Faculty Committee, I'm happy to welcome you here today. I'm Hala Esmail. I'm the Associate Director for Teaching and Learning with LSU Online. And just a little bit of context, the LSU Online Faculty Committee is a system-wide collaboration focused on supporting best practices and innovation in online teaching and learning. Today's event is part of our Pedagogy and Pixels panel series, which highlights practical strategies and ideas for delivering high-quality online education. We're excited to have a great group of panelists here with us today. We do plan on saving some time at the end for Q&A. So if you have any questions, we ask that you please post it in the Q&A section of this Zoom meeting so we can kind of keep track of everyone's questions and do our best to address them once we get to that section of the event. I'll also keep my eye on the chat area just in case there's any issues or questions as we move along through the next hour or so. Just a reminder to please keep your mics muted just to help ensure that we can adequately listen in on today's discussion. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Will Monroe. Dr. Monroe is a professor of professional practice at the LSU Law Center and the chair of the LSU Learning and Teaching Collaborative. And with that, Will, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Hala. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I'm really glad to be here with you all. I've been teaching online for about 9 years now, and I am forever a student of my colleagues and peers and different techniques that they bring to their class, and also to the support systems and folks that provide the advice and guidance for our online students. So glad to be here. And I guess to get us started, I'd like to ask for our panelists to introduce themselves. And I'd like to ask each of them to share their name, your institution, and your thoughts about why developing resilience is so critical at this time. And I'd like to start with Lori, if I could. Lori, could you take it from there?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Will. Well, hello, everybody. I am Lori Richard with LSU Online, and in my role, I focus on student support and retention across our online programs throughout the LSU system. I work with LSU Shreveport, LSU Eunice, the LSU Health Sciences Centers in New Orleans and Shreveport. And I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation about student success because this is something I really care deeply about, especially through the lens of resilience. I think my colleagues on the panel are mostly going to bring some valuable perspectives from the faculty side and how resilience shows up in coursework. But I do want to challenge everybody to think about this more holistically and broaden your view just a bit, and think about this more as what is happening across the entire institution that these students are facing. And what they need to stay engaged with the organization. Some students are experiencing barriers in navigating our institutions through policies, through processes and systems, and those moments do matter more than you probably would think. Our student success coach staff at LSU Online works closely with students every day, and we help them navigate those barriers that may affect their decision to enroll or remain at the institution. And so while we see our students struggle to stay engaged when financial aid is delayed, when transcript evaluations take longer than expected, or when they want to connect with an advisor and can't, these are real barriers that students struggle with every single day. So I want us to keep those things in mind as we talk through this conversation today. We often see our students lose momentum when they start to face these barriers. They lose confidence, and sometimes they'll lose trust in the institution as a whole. So I think that really puts the responsibility on us as institutional leaders to take an honest look at our policies and our processes and ask where we might be creating unnecessary friction. Because we don't want students to just use their resilience to navigate our institutional policies. We want them to still have capacity and patience to use that resilience when they face those real life challenges that will come up, like a personal emergency or maybe a particularly rigorous course that might have them doubt whether college is right for them. So I'll pause there, but hope this gives everyone some foundation to think about resilience beyond the classroom. And I'm really interested to hear how this will connect with the work of my peers that are going to be on the panel as well today.
Thank you so much, Lori. Holly, would you take it from there?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Holly Wilson. I am a professor of philosophy and religion at LSUA, and I teach in the health sciences program, and I also teach in the disaster preparedness program. So I do get some awareness of how students are juggling their time at management. And in fact, I just got off a conversation with a student who is having difficulty managing her time and has to drop a class, and that raises problems for financial aid. So we do have to advise students and help them navigate those difficult issues. But I think it's crucial that we, be friendly enough and also receptive enough to students and responsive to them so that they do share their difficulties and their struggles with us and they don't just drop off the page. And so I try to do that. And my perspective, Lori, will be mostly teach as a teacher and mostly as a teacher of online students. So that's what I think I have to bring to this panel today.
Thank you so much, Holly. Sibel, would you introduce yourself and give us some thoughts on resilience?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sibel Balgöteş. I'm the intern dean of the Pinky Gordon Lane Graduate School at LSU and a professor in the Department of Oceanography and Coastal Sciences. When I think about resilience, I think about adaptability in a changing world. I mean, these life changes and uncertainties always were there, but today is just changing much faster than it was with the constant information flow, social media, and global events that's unfolding in real time. This creates a new layers of anxiety that we weren't so much experiencing in the past, and that's causing difficulty for students to focus and fully engage in their academic work. And today's students also a little bit different in a way that they are very deeply motivated by purpose, more so than in the past as well. So they want their work and education in every step to be meaningful. So with those changes and new layers just joining to our higher education, I think as educators, we also need to adapt our approaches and be intentional and responsive to their needs. And not only helping them to facing these realities, that's changes, but providing and supporting them healthy perspective. So we'll just stop there.
Thank you, Sibel.
Of course.
Angie, could you introduce yourself and tell us some thoughts about resilience?
Certainly, thank you. My name is Angie Pellerin. I serve as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Success at LSU Shreveport. When it comes to resilience, I certainly bring a holistic perspective to that from the retention side, which is mainly where I work. I oversee first-year experience, career services, academic support, academic advising, and other initiatives, first-gen initiatives, things that are really important to helping us redesign and transform how we serve our students today. And resilience is big in many layers. It's important for students to develop those skills because they are navigating lots of challenges. Today's students come from much more diverse backgrounds, first-gen students, low-income students. So they're trying to balance many things and sometimes have different things in their backgrounds and in their lives that create barriers. And we don't want to, as institutions, perpetuate those barriers and create these artificial roadblocks in how we do things because we've done them the way we've done them for so many years. We have to be able to adapt, to use the word Sibel, adaptable. It's important for us as organizations to be resilient, and we have to adapt to serving our students' needs as well. And as faculty and staff, we also need to develop our own level of resilience because the demands and student needs, they keep coming. They're going to constantly coming at us with their needs, and we have to be able to create ways to support them that also fit within our ability and our capacity. And sometimes we have to build capacity to do those things, and part of that's training and understanding student needs more. So many perspectives around that. I do have a background in counseling as well before I moved into the area that I'm in. So I see the outcomes for students when they have those challenges, and I try to build that into being more proactive and preventing those things. And it starts with us.
Thank you so much, Angie. Thank you for those thoughts on resilience, everyone. Sibel, I'd like to start with a question for you. In your role, what are the earliest signals that a student is struggling with adaptability or with confidence? And how do you intervene before it impacts them in a negative way, impacts retention and that sort of thing?
Sure. So I have multiple experiences working with both undergraduates and graduate level. My current role is a graduate dean, but formerly I was an associate dean of academics in the College of the Coast and Environment, and I was primarily working with undergraduates. And the early signals that I've noticed is not always first academic ability. It's mainly lack of awareness and the navigation. So students come from families that are familiar with the college education. They usually know how to seek opportunities, ask the right questions, or advocate for themselves. But other students, it could be first generation students, introverts, or those maybe with somewhat less confidence, they struggle quietly. And if you don't pull them into your cohort, sometimes you lose them in early on, so that affects the retention as well. They're very much capable, but they don't know when to ask the right questions for their lives, sometimes in the educational platform in the right time. So another strong early signals to me is the disengagement and isolation. That's kind of follow up from the first one. If they are not being supported at the right time, then they start being isolated or disengaging in things. And usually these students are very capable, but the guilt sits in. So they don't want to disappoint people that trusted them for their success. So they are just kind of trying to, instead of, showing how much the fail it's happening and like they're experiencing, they're completely being isolated. And it's kind of a vicious cycle that goes on. And then there are hidden signals. I just want to give one quick example. I was teaching orientation class, and one simple assignment, this is for in-person class, for students to go on campus and have a social photo taken and just getting connected. And these were assigned groups. And one of the groups submitted, and one student in that group had the same picture in each of those photos. So it was obvious that that student photoshopped himself. So it seems like it's a minor or silly outcome, but it just reminded me that this might be something more than just a silly joke or whatever that they might think that they might be doing. Because as a college students, these age inappropriate behaviors are not very common. So if you see something like this in a college students, this could be a hidden signal. And in fact, I just regrouped them and I said, I'm not going to give you 0. You're just going to go and do the assignment again. They did. They supported their friend and they took the pictures. But that same student, unfortunately, required a big mental health support 1 month after this assignment. So that was a good wake-up call for me, because that something that looked like a small misstep was actually an indicator that something significant that was happening beneath the surface. And then, so that was a learning experience. Then sometimes the signals are not the most obvious ones. At the graduate level, it's a little bit different. One of the biggest things that I see in graduate students is procrastination. And usually when they reach their major milestones or deadline. And this is not because they are not capable of doing it. It's because of coming from perfectionism. And students, they do revising their writings, rethinking, or constantly making it better, because that feels safer than moving forward imperfectly. So over time, though, when they are doing too little or trying to do too much, progress stall is the same outcome. So that stress can escalate very dramatically in those milestone times. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Sibel. Are there any other thoughts about how to recognize and be sensitive to those hidden signals?
Yeah, I could say something that it may not be hidden signals, but maybe something's happening across the United States in terms of a weather event. And we as online professors, we have students from all over the United States. And I remember a time where there was a wind event in Ohio, and as a result, they couldn't take their exam. But I mean, it wasn't big enough to make the national news, so I had to trust my students to tell me that they were having difficulties. And I think we have to spend more time being alert and aware that of different natural events that students are experiencing and impediments to their ability to to finish the assignment on time. So that's one thing I think that we need to be more aware of. As well as I agree with Sybil that we need to be aware of the fact that there are internal events going on too that students are struggling with.
Yeah, that's a good contrast, Holly, and it brings to mind some experiences that I've had as an online instructor, having encountered things like that, like, oh, I just didn't know what was happening in Hawaii or in California. Okay. Well, are there any other thoughts about maybe how we might gracefully, appropriately intervene when we do pick up those signals? I mean, I think with what Holly just described, I think I have a playbook for that now as an online instructor a little bit in terms of giving my students the benefit of the doubt in situations like that. But I guess I'm thinking of the hidden signals or perhaps more difficult to discern kind of signs we might get from students. Anything else?
I can jump in and add. I have a background as a faculty member as well before coming over to LSU Online, so I definitely see both perspectives. When it comes to hidden signals from students, one of the ways that we can kind of combat that is when a student starts to kind of fall off the map a little bit, maybe they're not hearing from us, is actually being proactive with them and reaching out. I haven't seen you in a while, haven't seen you interacting in the forums in a while, whatever it might be, wherever you're indicating that something might be off with them, is to actually just reach out, send a personal email and say, hey, I just want to check in on you, make sure everything's going okay. But I think another thing that's really critical, and it's something super small, but it's the timing of when we get back to them when they do reach out for help. If they reach out, they send a message, they send a question, and they don't hear from us for a week or 2 weeks, and we're in an accelerated online class, well, we might have missed the boat with them because they have already, started to check out. But as a faculty member, I also know that we are not available 24 hours a day. And so if a message comes in at midnight, we're not going to be responding at midnight. So there certainly is a balance there between what we want our students to expect from us and when it comes to a response time. But simple things like that is responding in an appropriate amount of time, but also the tone of the email that we send can also really trigger a student. So if we're too curt, if we are too quick to respond, if we don't give enough warmth or compassion in that email response, that is something else that can just, again, trigger that student to not want to come back or not return because they're already facing something that is really, really hard for them.
Thank you, Lori. I completely agree. And I guess I won't put myself too much into our discussion as a moderator, but it just calls to mind some of the policies that I've tried to develop over the years about being clear about the different modes of communication, the how quickly I will respond in each, and the types of questions or even the types of responses. So an email, perhaps a more elaborate, kind of response. And I think in some ways a warmer and more sensitive one becomes possible in a medium like that. Whereas I've used other messaging tools just to kind of get information back when immediacy is needed. Anyway, that might be the subject for another panel. But I'd like to go ahead and maybe move on to the next question. Holly, I'm going to bring this one to you, and it's here it goes. Many initiatives fail because they feel like, quote, one more thing to be done. How can resilience and adaptability be embedded into existing courses or advising practices rather than treated as separate interventions?
Well, I was actually just thinking about sharing my screen here. I wonder if I can do that. See if I can find it here. I think that if, what I do in my syllabus is start out with a statement like this. Can you see my screen? I care about your success in this course. And I think that primes the pump right away for them to realize that I am going to be flexible when challenges arise. And those challenges can be internal ones they're suffering in their life, or external ones that a lot of people are suffering. So I want them to know right away that I care about them and that I can be flexible, but I also want to balance that with saying that I expect them to manage their time as best they can. So they have those two things that they have to keep in mind, that I'm going to be open to them if they come to me with a crisis that they can't manage, a deadline they can't meet, or an assignment they haven't been able to handle. And I get that a lot. And then it also tells them I can be flexible, but at the same time, I'm kind of telling them too, they have some responsibility to, as best they can, to meet deadlines. So I think the resilience comes in when they see that, one, I'm flexible enough to manage, give them a second opportunity to meet a deadline. And second, they also realize I'm not going to be critical of them when they do have a difficulty, that they know that I'm going to be receptive, and that their expectation is not, well, she's going to judge me, she's going to kick me out of this program or something like that. And I think students get kind of harsh in that area, thinking about themselves. They think we're quite harsh, and I think we need to upfront communicate that we are compassionate people. But yet at the same time, we have to live by expectations, because we have to grade 120 students in one class, and we can't just change all the assignments for one student. So that's how I think that we can best respond to their needs, so that they can be resilient and bounce back and stay with the program and stay with the course.
That's great. Thank you, Holly.
Stop sharing. There we go.
Is there, how about embedding, how about resilience and adaptability as embedded into advising practices or other kinds of engagements with students, interactions with students?
Is that for all of us?
Yeah, that's right. I'm just putting it out there. But, Holly, if you had some thoughts on it too. Well, maybe Sibel, I think you may have just, unmuted yourself.
If I may, but if Holly wants to add on, I'm happy to pause.
Go ahead, Sibel.
Okay. Yeah. I did think about this a lot. And throughout my 19 years of being at LSU and teaching in every level of courses, how I can kind of create a course curriculum that will bring the soft and hard skills together. Because in real life, they are not separated. So why we are trying to always kind of tease it apart. So before I start giving two examples that I will share slides, I just want to share the human touch carries a long way. These students they do feel vulnerable. And they come from a high school setting that everything is so structured. They do need that nurturing. They do need to be understood. So more empathy you can provide is just, it's just they are doing their 100% of the effort that they can put forward. They do it because they believe in you, that you believe in them. So it's just like it's a very wonderful circle. So with that in mind, what I have done is I removed the uncertainty by design. So I'm just going to give you one example at the undergraduate level, another example at the graduate level, because if you kind of remove these layers of unknowns in the right time that they need to be focusing on or thinking about it, then they're going to be relaxed. They're going to have a better opportunity to focus on the material given. And I think they will be more resilient for what's coming next. Just the preparing them what's coming next, I think you really need to think about what you're giving them now. So that's, to me, was very important. And also, when I was a PhD student, I had one choice to move forward. That was being a faculty in a university. And now, even at the PhD level, they have so much choices. And think about undergraduates. They have so many choices every day and for their future. So there's a lot of things to think about it. And that creates a very anxious environment for them to move forward. So they're kind of paralyzed in that. So, okay, but I talk too much. Hold on. Let me share it if I can. All right. If you are able to, can you see my slides? Okay, perfect. So this is something I worked on with my faculty to establish at the college level for the undergraduate students. We created kind of a cohort-based milestone courses, and we made the curriculum so that they kind of have to, or by choice, they most likely will take these courses. Some of them are required, some of them is not required, but almost all of them are taking it. So in each level, this is the first year that we kind of give them the motivation and understanding their major. And then the second level, we give them these kind of foundational skills that they're going to be building upon when they become junior and seniors. And in their third year, before they run in panic, we give them some career projections and make them start making them think about their choices and how they can healthily prepare for them, as well as the practices of those skills that they've gained in their sophomore year. And then the final year is really kind of combining, integrating all the hard skills and the soft skills they have gone. And then they might do internship, or they might start preparing their packages for the career applications and so forth. So that really allowed them step by step to focus the right things in the right time before trying to be panicking and kind of taking everything that they need for the 4 years in a one semester. So it helped them to kind of give sufficient time for the things that they need to focus. But at the graduate level, it's not possible. Graduate students are not taking many courses the undergraduates do. They do their research. So what we are working now at the graduate school with our student success team is to create pillars. And that is in 2 levels. We are looking at the programs that supports their academic enhancement or well-being or their career preparation. Even those pillars can be targeted depending on what phase the student is in their education. So we created another set of pillars as incoming students, early stage graduate students, mid-stage graduate students, and advanced stage graduate students. In that way, they can see, because they don't have so much time to go in all these events as graduate students, so they can pick the right thing for their skill that they need to gain in a given time in their education. So more intentional and targeted interferences like this, I think it's going to make them more resilient what is going to come next. So I'll stop sharing and pause here.
Thank you, Sibel. Are there any other thoughts about maybe even smaller steps we could take to embed resilience and adaptability into courses or student experiences? I know I'm going to be thinking about this for a little while because just with some of the language that Holly shared, and then sort of the big picture scenario that Sibel just laid out, I guess one of the things that I appreciate about teaching online is that it offers, in some ways, opportunities for both. Thinking ahead, planning out my entire course experience, really kind of seeing a certain kind of path for my students that is maybe distinct from my face-to-face experiences, but also smaller ways I can innovate here and there to change that path a little bit. I'm not sure if that rings true for any of you, but Holly, did you have something you wanted to add?
Sure. I teach religion, so it's okay within my discipline to teach meditation and these kind of practices. So one practice I introduced to my health sciences students, especially because they're so stressed, is a self-compassion exercise. And a lot of them are very surprised by this. And you can go to selfcompassion.org to pick up a self-compassion exercise. They're very surprised because they've never been taught to have compassion for themselves. They've always been taught to have compassion for the people they're caring for, but they never realized that they could take time out. They're taught to have self-care, but self-care costs money usually. So self-compassion is something they can give themselves on while they're breathing and while they're helping other people. And I have found it helps them lower the stress level they have about their grades and begin to learn more and be open to learning more because hey, thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, selfcompassion.org is a great place to pick up a good meditation, and I would recommend it highly for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
I can
So,
piggyback off that just a bit. I love how Holly was talking about self-compassion and it being a little bit different than, I'm sorry, Holly, what was the other term you used?
Self-care.
Self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care. Thank you for that. I think too, though, it's important that we remember the resources available at the institution when it comes to maybe some self-care, if they need some counseling services or if they need some health services or other things, tutoring services. Those typically are available to our students, especially our online students. And sometimes our online students don't realize that those things are available to them. So, reminding their students of the resources and pointing them in that direction, especially if they indicate to you that they might need a little bit of that, would be another way that I would suggest and that we don't forget about.
I'll add to that too. I'll finally chime in. When you think about self-care and self-compassion, and also the populations that we are serving that tend to hesitate to ask for help, a lot of them have this inner narrative where if I need to ask for help, then I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, any number of messages that they tend to operate on. Helping reframe those, particularly at pivotal milestones across the semester. It could be near the midterm grades and near the drop date, knowing that it's okay if you didn't do well in this first exam. We want to normalize support seeking, and we also want to normalize failure as a learning moment and not as a defining moment. And what do you need to do to learn to improve? And that is asking for help and using those services. They're there because many students need it, not just because the struggling students might need it. The services are there for them to be successful, and that's what successful students do, is ask for help. And if we can continue to give that message, not just at the beginning, which I love it in the syllabus, that's day one, right? But how do you remind them along the way? Many students are, struggle on this first exam. You're figuring out how to be tested and what strategies are needed. You can learn those strategies over time. So I think it's really important for self-compassion to also build in. It's okay to ask for help.
Thank you, Angie. And I had a question for you that I feel like you may have addressed in a way. I'm going to go ahead and answer or ask it anyway, just to see what else I can learn from it, because I'm kind of thinking about what you and others have said about this. So the question goes something like this. If you had a colleague who wanted to start embedding resilience into their course or into an advising practice, but didn't know where to begin, what's one concrete first step you'd recommend?
I think just picking one routine interaction. So as Holly used, the syllabus as a perfect example, but it could be something that is in a course or in a service that you provide if it's advising. Pick one thing that you already do and add in just a single practice that's building resilience. It's not an add-on so much as just an integration of those are the messages and the skills building. So it could be with an advisor, it could be before we set some goals, why don't we talk about what challenges have you had this past semester or in the past in general? And what's one small thing you did in the past that helped you? Or what lesson did you learn? What strength did you rely on? And then take that from there with the student. I think it's important to co-create their action steps with them. So help them know that they can do it without your help. You co-create that so they have that sense of self-efficacy. It builds their confidence in being able to do something. We want to take the word ability out of it. That's a fixed mindset concept. We all have the ability. We just have to change our habits and our practices and learn something new and a new skill. We're all able to do well if we do the right things in that practice. But I think the co-creation is really important because we want to leave students with the confidence they can do it when we're not there. And really the foundation for resilience, since we're on this conversation of resilience, is hope. And it's hope in the sense that not having blind faith that everything will work out, but knowing that I have within me the resources to do what I need to do to accomplish or to overcome whatever the task is in front of me or the challenge. So I think adding in, it could be some evidence-based practices that are very simple, like something called an antecedent essay. That's where right before an exam, it's basically anxiety dumping, but it really is 10 minutes right before an exam, write about all the things you're worried about, all the fears that you have related to this course or this test. And then that purges the anxiety and kind of the stress hormones get released. And then they can go to the exam and actually think clearly. So that's something that's very low lift. Faculty don't have to do anything. It's just a prompt, a reflective prompt that you can build in along the way. That's just a simple thing, low cost, not time consuming. That's just one example that I have. I'm really big on growth mindset and mindset interventions, and there's tons of brief reflective activities you can do that actually help students psychologically remove the emotional barriers and really engage their prefrontal cortex to actually do what they need to do in critical thinking.
That's great. And thank you, Angie. And addressing growth mindset specifically, but also, I mean, I was thinking when you first talked about pick one, routine interaction and then co-create these action steps with the student. And then, your antecedent essay reflection prompt. This makes me think of like small teaching, but for resilience. If you're familiar with James Lang's wonderful books, which if you aren't, I really recommend them to anyone who's here because it's relevant for both face-to-face and online teachers. Lots of great small steps, but this kind of overlaps with that in terms of its doability, and some of the effects. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a little practice that I use in the beginning of the semester and when they introduce themselves. I ask them already to tell me what their steps are going to be once they encounter an obstacle that's going to impede their ability to be successful in the class. So they have to tell me right up front and tell everybody about it. So they're getting accountability. what they're going to do when they encounter an obstacle to success in this class. So it also tells them right away, we're expecting you to have obstacles, so don't feel bad if you do. I mean, just put your reason to work and start overcoming the obstacle.
That is another great one, Holly. And I mean, I'm almost marching through my own week of challenges as we're talking about this here, thinking about, okay, if I can just, approach this next workshop I'm going to be delivering in this manner. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I'd like to leave a little bit of room, if I'm not rushing things here, for some Q&A with our participants here who are with us. So I guess, Hala, at this point, do we have any questions? Or if there are no questions in the chat, would anyone like to ask a question? You can do so in the chat. I think we have the option for you to unmic yourself and talk to us, talk to the panelists.
Yeah. Will, we do have one question in the Q&A section. Holly, this kind of touches on earlier when you were speaking about like flexibility, but also the standards and expectations we have of students. But this question is really for anyone here today. So the question is, sometimes I worry that I'm too lenient in my LSU online class with students who come to me with problems related to work schedules, family stress, and mental health concerns. I'm happy to work with all of my students and I don't mind being flexible. The question is it unfair to students who don't reach out to me? I encourage everyone to reach out about anything that causes problems with completing the accelerated class. So any thoughts on that?
Well, one thing I would say is the answer to that is no. It's not unfair to the students who are doing well in class and are managing to keep up with the deadlines. I think that's fine. If you're being flexible with some people, that's because they're having difficulties. And you're saying that you can be flexible with them. And I just don't think we should be hard on ourselves when we're being flexible with some students. The next class, it may be another student or it may be you. I mean, we're all, sometimes people have to declare bankruptcy or sometimes people have to, get a break from their boss or whatever for their job. So I think, no, it's not unfair and we shouldn't, be judging ourselves for that. We should just do it and be kind and flexible and compassionate.
I just want to add, I agree with Holly. I don't think it's unfair either, but usually when that happens, just to kind of make sure that I'm also capturing people that who might be shy to reach out in some of those obstacles. I kind of openly, without giving names, just saying that these might be the needs, and I want to make sure that you are free to reach out. So if I provide a flexibility of some kind that can be applied to the entire class, I usually offer them, even they might not need, just to kind of give the chance for the quiet ones to raise their voice.
Well, are there any other questions about that? These are great questions there. That's one I think I've thought about before, and Holly's authoritative and direct response to that is going to give me something to think about because I don't always know. Anything else? Yeah.
Sorry, Will, we just got another question that was posted. The question is, I'd love to hear about how instructors are incorporating stretch or challenge assignments. How do you view grading these types of assignments, and what are some of the ways you communicate that the rigor has increased?
Okay, I don't like the awkward silence, so I'll just come off mute and say I have never personally encountered that as a faculty member. It's not, those stretch assignments are not something that I did for those reasons, so maybe our faculty folks might have a little bit more insight to that.
I can just kind of briefly mention, usually the first time I start teaching a class, I go through everything on the syllabus and say that, and I try to be as detailed as possible in my syllabus so that they know kind of what are the assignments is coming up and what are the expectations of each assignments. So they know which ones are the easier ones and which one is getting more challenging towards the end of the semester. But with that saying, depending on the level of the class, if it's an undergraduate, I try to kind of tell them that this is challenging and it's an opportunity. It's not to struggle. So just kind of put yourself towards that opportunity. And then if you, seek support and help, you just reach out anytime and any day and any time of the day. So just giving that comfort that they're going to be facing something a little bit more challenging in the semester and providing them the guidance that whenever they need. Usually I don't get any drama out of it. So I try to be as clear as possible in the very beginning, but then I constantly reminding them that their support is here when they need it, even things gets a little bit challenging, and make them understand that this is an opportunity. It shouldn't be a struggle. I don't know if that answers your question, sorry. But those are the first things that came to my mind.
That's a great response. Clarity from the beginning and constant reminders, which strikes me as a rubric you could use across a number of different experiences like that. That's great. Are there any other questions out there?
I'll add just to that question about stretch assignments. I have not personally done that in a course as a faculty member, but I have done it in my counseling background, and this may be food for thought for the group. There's a concept called stress mindset. So there's a lot of research on how you perceive stress and how it impacts well-being, and there's a reflection exercise, a mindset exercise called a stretch goal, where you create a stretch goal for yourself. And it's like 3 questions. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, so I'm going to screw it up, I know. But something to do with do you want to grow this year or this semester or something like that, so you could build it into a course. What strengths do you want to leverage? What challenges do you foresee? So it's really using that kind of predictive thing where you can be proactive, but how do you want to stretch this year or this semester or in this course? And you could build that and then maybe build an assignment around that, perhaps. There's some research while we're on this call. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the chat. Maybe there's a link I can find to that. But I just thought I'd throw.
Thank you, Angie. I appreciate that, especially given what you said earlier about co-creation of goals and you didn't say goals exactly, but it was around co-creation around, I guess, preparing for different projects and assignments. I'm probably mangling that, but I guess maybe I'll take a moderator's moment here and just say that I'm thinking about a peer review sort of assignment phase that I want to engage in my online class. This is something I've never quite done at this level before. And so our discussion around stretch goals and really everything that we've been talking about up to this point is coming to mind. I'll just throw this out there. Anyone who wants to answer it. What advice would you have for me? And as I think about what could be a very meaningful, personally, socially, professionally, intellectually, a meaningful moment in someone's online course experience there related to peer review. That's not a very well formulated question, but take that anywhere you'd like.
All right, Dr. Monroe, repeat that for me one more time.
Well, to put it plainly, I'm designing a peer review project, I guess, but it's sort of one part of a lot. I want early on in this course, before the midway point, for my students who will have already received plenty of feedback from me to have the opportunity to give feedback to one another. And I guess I'm thinking about resilience and adaptability and some of what I want to make that connection there, I guess. And maybe this just is something I can march forward from a conversation with. But if you had any thoughts about that kind of moment, that's all right. That's all right.
Well, I just want to add something. I think for any kind of things like, especially for the peer review, when they are shy and, scared of hearing each other's opinions, I think anything that you put it in an intentional context is going to give them the flexibility to adapt to those kind of uncomfortable setting. Because if you explain to them why they need each other's feedback and put it in a positive spin for their gain, I think they're okay to adapt to that and they will be open and they kind of enjoy and appreciate hearing each other. But if you put it in a competitive setting or criticize, in an environment that they will feel that they're going to be hearing some criticism, they will never going to be respond and gain anything in that effect from that exercise. So I think the clear, open communication from your heart to them that understands the benefit of that exercise will take them in a positive direction.
I have something to say. I would say psychologically, it's important for them to have camaraderie before you have evaluation.
Mm.
So what I do is I put them in teams, and then the two teams debate each other. And so they get that camaraderie and that sense of belonging and support, and it builds confidence in themselves. And then they get to know each other a little bit too. And then they have a little more confidence to be able to hear what a criticism might be. But I'm cautious about allowing students to criticize each other or evaluate each other just because that's really, that could introduce, I don't know, just too much criticism. I prefer they work together in teams and support each other and build that kind of camaraderie, because I think it builds self-initiative, it builds confidence, and in the end it's what the real world is like. We do have to work in teams in the real world. So that's my suggestion.
Just the one thing to add on, I think you might introduce that idea in small groups before you open to entire class or in front of a class. I usually have these in my career preparation course in the past. I created these small groups. So it was much better for them to hear each other's perspective in smaller group than one being kind of in the middle in front of an entire classroom and getting all these criticism from anyone that is unexpected. So I think in a more structural, smaller groups will allow them to be more flexible and accepted towards each other. So.
Thank you
As
both.
I'm sitting here listening to Holly and Sybil, I'm thinking through, I think I understand where you're going with this, Will, and you want those students to really understand their subject matter. And when we teach, we're forcing people to understand the subject matter in a much deeper level than surface level. And so I love that the ability to teach or provide feedback is really making them think critically about whether the understanding of that subject matter is really there for themselves, but then also the person that they're reviewing. But I'm going to go a little bit devil's advocate with Holly just a bit, because sometimes it might not be super critical feedback. It might be folks that don't want to offend their coworker, their classmate, and provide overly positive things. So I think if you're going to go that route, you really just have to coach with the expectations as to what you're expecting for them to provide, the reasons behind it, and maybe even to help Holly feel a little bit more comfortable, some guidelines on what's appropriate and not appropriate. And I do think I like what Holly said. It goes on to the real world and into your career, because we do all have to work together. And those soft skills of how do you collaborate in a way that we can give positive, honest feedback with somebody, is something that they will carry forward all the way through to whatever, comes next for them in their life.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a lot for me to think about there, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think we're coming up towards the end of our time together. So if there are any other questions, we'd love to address them now. Wait, excuse me. It's time for feedback for the panelists themselves. So maybe Hala will introduce this. But if not, I think you all know what's on your screen now.
Thanks, Will. I did see a couple of comments just kind of come up as we wrap up here today. So take a look at the chat for some great comments from our attendees. So I know we just have about 3 minutes here left today. So I do want to take an opportunity to thank our panelists for spending part of their afternoon with us. And a big thank you to Will for moderating today. A lot of food for thought. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback. So if y'all don't mind taking a minute or two to complete a survey and sharing your thoughts on today's event, as well as any ideas that you have for future events. So any other topics that the committee can explore, we're always open to hearing them. I posted the link. You can scan the QR code that's here on the slide, or you can access the survey via the link that I posted in the chat. I plan to send a follow-up email with a recording of today's session, as well as the survey if you prefer to take it at a later time. Also, once the captions are finalized for today's session, I will be posting the recording on our LSU Online Faculty Committee webpage. I posted the link to the webpage in the chat. Feel free to check out that website for recordings of the previous panel events that we've had over the past year or so. So we'll kind of hang on for a couple of minutes just in case there's any lingering questions. But again, on behalf of the committee, thank you for joining us here today, and we hope to see you at our future events.